there are ramifications for in the Bible for those who are silent in the face of sin, proving that there are indeed consequences for just letting sin go on unhindered. Could you go over one of those two for us?
To those that think they're being holy by not getting involved, I have a question for you. What do you do with Numbers chapter 30? I mentioned already, but it's the silence equals consent chapter, half a dozen scenarios. And I mentioned the one, if the daughter's still living in her father's house, here's the daughter, and the father hears that the daughter made a vow and bound herself like she's never going to marry or something like that. And the day the father hears it, if the father is silent, her vows stand. But in the day the father hears it, if he disallows it, she's released from the vow and the Lord forgives her. That's come down to us as vows in a wedding ceremony. And the pastor tells the church members, if you are silent, you are giving consent to these wedding vows. Speak now or forever hold your peace. In law, it's called the rule of tacit admission, T-A-C-I-T. An admission reasonably inferable from a party's failure to act or speak. It's in Black's Law Dictionary. It's even in our Constitution. You think, yeah? Yeah, it says in the Article 1, Section 7, that the Congress passes a bill. It's sent to the president's desk. And the president can veto the bill. He can sign the bill, or he can let it sit there. And if he lets it sit there for 10 days, it automatically becomes law. His silence, his inactivity, his failure to do anything is legally interpreted as his approval. It has the same effect as if he signed it if he just does nothing for 10 days. Your silence gives your consent. And so if a church member's silence gives consent to wedding vows, their silence gives consent to other things. And if they're killing babies and you're silent, you're giving consent to killing babies. And there's even Leviticus chapter 20. It hits it right on the head. It says, any Israelite who sacrifices a child to Moloch to be put to death, if any member of the community closes their eyes when that man sacrifices a child to a Moloch, I myself, the Lord, will set my face against that man and his family and cut them off from Israel. So all you have to do is close your eyes while they kill the baby, and you are cut off. And you think, well, this can't happen. California actually had a bill to kill a baby 28 days after birth. And
that's insane.
And a whole lot of people like, oh, okay, well, fine. But a bunch of pastors said, I've had enough. And I can't be silent. And so you had black pastors, Hispanic pastors, Asian pastors, white pastors, all go to Sacramento and say, stop this. And they reworded it. It's still a bad bill, but they reworded it. But Proverbs 24 says, rescue those who are unjustly sentenced to death. Don't stand back and let them die. Don't try to disclaim responsibility by saying you didn't know about it. For the Lord who knows all hearts knows yours, and he knows you knew, and he will hold you accountable. You know, the Apostle Paul, Acts 22, he says, and when talking to the Lord, he says, and when the blood of thy martyr Stephen was shed, I also was standing by consenting to his death. Paul didn't throw a stone. He didn't say anything. He just stood there. And while he was silent, they killed Stephen. Paul knew he was guilty for the death of Stephen because he was silent. You know, Mordecai goes to Queen Esther and says, there's a mandate from the government to kill the Jews. If you're silent, you will be killed, and God will raise up somebody else to deliver the Jews. It even gets pretty clear with Numbers chapter 20. The Lord calls Moses and Aaron to the door of the tabernacle, and the Lord said, gather the assembly, thou and Aaron, speak to the rock, water will come out. They gathered the assembly. Moses lifted up his rod, hits the rock once, hits the rock twice, water comes out. End of the chapter, it says, Aaron, the Lord spake unto Moses and said, Aaron will not enter the land because both of you rebelled against me at the waters of Meribah. It's like, both? Aaron didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. Yeah, that's just it. There were two people at the door of the tabernacle, Moses and Aaron. Aaron heard God tell Moses to speak to the rock. When Moses lifted up the rod and hit the rock the first time, it probably took Aaron by surprise. When Moses lifted up the rod the second time, Aaron knew what was coming. And he didn't say, Moses, hold it. Oh, wait a second. I was there. I heard God say, speak to the rock. No, he was silent. And in that instant, he was guilty. Moses's was a sin of commission. Aaron's was a sin of omission. the speaking out, you got this wicked king Jehoiakim, and he's taken Jeremiah's prophecy and cutting it up with a penknife and throwing it in the fire in the winter palace. And it says the princes of Israel stood around watching him. And it says, and the princes showed no fear, nor did they tear their clothes, nor did their servants. Though Nathan and Deliah and Gemariah urged the king not to burn the scroll. And they went down in history as standing up, not being in agreement. But these other guys are standing around watching him burn it. And it's pretty clear that they're participating in the guilt of burning it.